Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. Well, this is kind of different, but I just saw a video on YouTube about how to have a good stretch in your car. And I don't know where you're listening from right now, but most of the time when I listen to a podcast, it's in the car. So whether you're in your car or you're in your living room or you're walking outside, I just think it would be good for us all to take a moment to do a good stretch. Don't you think? So let's do it together. We're all going to start with good posture. So we're going to sit up straight or stand up straight. And then I want you to turn your head slowly to the left and stretch your neck to the left. And then slowly turn your head to the right and stretch your head to the right. Let's do that one more time, but we're going to breathe through that. So take a deep breath in and blow out as you stretch to the left. And then deep breath in and stretch as you turn to the right. Okay, now we're going to put our arms out as far as you can. If you're in the car, you probably cannot put your arms straight out like you're going to give someone a big hug, but however you can, stretch your arms straight out and then push your arms back just a little to flex the muscles in the back. And then we're going to reach our arms forward like we're giving someone a big hug and then put our arms straight up in the air like we're high-fiving the sky. And I want you to stretch with your arms straight up in the air. Now lift your left hand just a little bit higher than the right and feel that stretch on your side. And now we're going to push our hands a little bit higher on the right. And now we're going to push our right hand up just a little bit higher than the left and feel a good stretch on our right side. And then I want you to reach down and touch your toes. If you can't touch your toes, that's okay. Just put your legs straight out and flex your feet up and then point your toes. That gives a good stretch in your legs for just a moment. And now let's all take a deep breath in and blow it out. And now I want you to look straight up into the sky as high as you can. Let your neck go all the way back as far as you can. We tend to look down a lot because we're looking at our phones or looking at computers or books all day. And so it's kind of nice to look up into the sky and take a deep breath and then blow that out. Okay. Do you feel better? Was that refreshing? I thought that was so interesting. We can have a good stretch in our car or wherever we are, and it's so good for our bodies and for circulation and just for being in the moment. Speaking of being in the moment, I am so excited to welcome our guest today. Her name is Joy Prouty, and she has written a book called Practicing Presence, A Mother's Guide to Savoring Life through the photos you're already taking. Joy is a professional photographer, creative director, and filmmaker who seeks to help people truly see. Her work has been featured on Entertainment Tonight and in a variety of publications, including Magnolia Journal and People magazine. Joy and her husband, Donnie, make heart-stirring films for musicians and nonprofit organizations. Joy lives on a little island near Washington State with her husband and their 7 children. You guys, this was such a great conversation about being in the moment and practicing presence. And if you love photography, I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with my guest, Joy Prouty. Joy, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited too.
Yes. And I just learned, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and you are not in Atlanta, Georgia. Where are you located?
I'm on a tiny little island in the Salish Sea in Washington.
That's amazing. So we're on opposite ends of the United States. And I think that's so cool that we get to talk today.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. So tell me what it's like to live on an island.
Well, we moved here because we were longing to connect with nature again. And so I have 7 children from ages 16 to 2, and it gets really loud in the house. And so it's a joy to be able to go and plunge our bodies in the sea, and we can see whales from the shoreline and all of these things that we were just dreaming about before. We are now witnessing them. So we have a renewed sense of awe. We just moved here a couple of months ago.
That's amazing. And you have to ride a ferry to get everywhere, right?
So if we want to go to the mainland, we have to take a ferry. We take the car on and we have to prepare, and you have to have a reservation. There's no just quick get to the mainland. We have to plan ahead.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love you get to see whales. That's amazing.
Yes. And it's so fun we're learning so much about whales, about the way that they connect and the way they communicate. And it has been fun having my book come out about connection and communication and presence. And at the same time that we're learning about all of these pods of orcas and how they are so connected. So it's mesmerizing and awe-inspiring.
I love that. Okay. I cannot wait to talk to you about this because you have a book out that we're going to discuss. And you're also a photographer. How long have you been in photography?
I have been doing it for over 20 years. I have pivoted several times, multiple times, as far as the subjects that I photograph, but I just can't seem to get myself away from the camera. It helps bring me into the moment in a way that nothing else does.
That's incredible. Okay, I cannot wait to talk to you about all of this stuff. But before we do that, because this is a podcast for kids, I always make my guests tell me a joke. So do you have a joke for us today?
Okay, Christen, I'm ready. Okay, here we go. Why did the girl never try to become a photographer?
I don't know.
Well, she just couldn't picture herself being one. Picture herself.
I love it. That's great. That's a good one. She couldn't picture it, That's how it happens.
Thank you.
That was good. Good. Well, speaking of photography, let's talk about how you got started in photography. What made you figure out that you like to take pictures?
Okay, well, when I was little, I've always been someone that has carried a lot of stress in my body. And I grew up in a house where it was really loud and felt fairly chaotic, and I would spend a lot of time in my room, and I had this little plastic camera that I had gotten for Christmas, and whenever things would get really loud and it would feel overwhelming in my house, I would pick that camera up and bring it to my face, and when I looked through there, it gave me a way to focus on the things around me that weren't loud, that didn't feel overwhelming or scary, and I could look for interesting things. I could focus on them. I could look at the details. And so I think I had developed my own coping mechanism, like a form of mindfulness using the camera. And I've carried that through my life and just loved looking at the way that people connected, the way that people loved each other. I really love photographing families. And it has helped me learn how to be a better person, a better mother, by observing so closely the details of the way that people live.
We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app. I love that. And I love that you said it was something that helped you just to focus in when things felt too stressful. Do you think that someone that might be interested in photography, do you think they have to have really nice equipment to be a photographer?
Definitely not. I say this in my book, that the best camera to use is the one that you have with you. And I know a lot of people use their phones, but anything that helps you to see the world more closely. That the whole point is to get out of your head and into your body. So if you can hold something in your hands that can help zoom you in to the magic and wonder that's just waiting to be found, that can help de-stress or take down some other emotions that might be in your body. At least that's the way it works. I have found it works that way for my kids too, but also for me.
That's awesome. And so do all of your kids like to take pictures? Is that something that everybody in your family enjoys?
Everyone has their own camera. They don't use my phone to take pictures, though. I try my best not to use my phone, but we have Polaroid cameras. I have toddlers also. So the little ones, they have, just the little ones that if they drop it, they're not going to get broken. But, and even one of my older children, they don't really like photography. So when we go on our adventures looking for things, they bring a magnifying glass. And so the way I see it is the camera is just a magnifying glass to show you what matters most to you.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about your book because I really love how your book is helping families to practice presence. Can you talk about that a little bit, like what that means to practice presence as a family?
Yes. Well, I think that so many families, it's very easy to get into survival mode. And definitely after the last few years that we've all had together, we have to sometimes, just survive. And the thing, it's okay. It's okay for a temporary amount of time. But when it becomes a lifestyle, when the comfort of survival mode becomes a lifestyle, we lose connection with one another. And to be present means that you are in the moment, not trying to numb yourself, not trying to find a way to get out of it, that no matter what feelings are coming up in that moment, you are practicing being in that moment so that you can feel what is there rather than trying to rush on to the next thing.
Yes, I think that's so true that we're all stuck sometimes in survival mode. And so we need to figure out another way that we can be together as a family or just be in the moment instead of just thinking about the next thing. I think that's hard for people. Why do you think that's hard for people to do that? We're always kind of thinking about what's the next thing on my list or the next thing in the future. Like, how do we do that? How do we practice that?
Yes, I think is the most difficult thing that we can do because to be present requires vulnerability. And vulnerability means that you are showing the deepest parts of yourself or even showing your joy. And when life requires us to take it serious, most of the time there's bills and responsibilities and school and work and trying to do the right thing medically and as a parent and as a student. And there are so many things that require us to rush and be serious. And so we get used to that. Presence, you can't do presence perfectly. And I think when you're in school or work, you're trying to achieve something, you're trying to get somewhere, you're trying to climb the ladder of success in some way. Even in parenting, we're trying to do it really, really well based upon what other people have told us is a quote unquote good job of that. And you can't be present and perfect and productive at the same time. Those things are impossible. And so that's why I named the book Practicing Presence, because a practice is something that you just show up to every day. And that's the same thing with presence. Being a parent, being in a relationship with anyone requires that you just show up imperfectly. And when we try to do it perfect or we're trying to achieve something or do it well, that's when a lot of negativity starts to come into our minds.
Yeah, I agree. I love what you said earlier about how your family likes to go on adventures. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your family does?
Yes. Well, we've been doing cold plunging in the sea. That when and it is cold. It's colder in our ocean than I think at your ocean.
Probably so.
Yeah, it's like 45 degrees. And so
wow.
We have been working, all of our adventures are based on trying to amplify every one of our senses. So we want to be in a place where we can submerge ourselves in an experience together, something that is new. And no matter how many times we go into the sea, and not just run in, like go in and stay in for a couple minutes and feel what those feelings feel like in our skin and in our hands. And, we're taking it every time it's new, every time it's shocking, and we're in it together thinking, this is impossible. And yet we're laughing and we're giggling. And last week we were doing it, and my daughter said, what if we saw a wild animal right now? And right then a seal popped up right where we were in the water and started playing with us. And then a fox came on the beach, and we just were so in awe that we were a part of nature. We weren't just watching it. We were submerged in the experience, and it became so much more connective because now we talk about those memories that we made.
That sounds so fun. Okay. I feel like you're so much braver than I like to turn on the shower to cold, like right at the end of my shower. And I feel like I'm so healthy, and this is like the polar plunge, but that sounds nothing like what you just said.
No, you're doing it. You're doing it. But there are even additional benefits of like the salt water and all of that for helping with inflammation in the body. And so maybe your next one, Christen, can be in the sea.
Okay, I'll try that. Although I don't know that the ocean that I'm closest to will get to 45, but we'll see. That's amazing. And I love being outside and being able to experience nature in different ways. Whenever we have a pond right next to our house, and we see animals all the time. Like, we joke that we live in a nature preserve, but we really just live in a little neighborhood that animals seem to congregate to. And it's always so cool to just be a part of, just to look at each other. Like, when you make eye contact with an animal, I think it's so fun just to interact in that way, even for a moment.
Oh, how special that you have that experience in a place that seems somewhat, that you wouldn't expect it. That even seems more magical.
Yes, we have an otter that visits our pond quite often. And so, and they're very playful. Otters are very, very playful. So it's lots of fun, like to look at him and feel like, is he happy to see us, or is he a little freaked out? I don't know, but okay. So one of the quotes in your book that I absolutely love, and I underlined this, is that photography is not just about capturing appearances. In every picture you take, you get to make the choice as to what you want to honor and preserve. I love that. I love thinking about photography as a way to honor something. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think that we are very layered. We're very layered humans, and we aren't made up of just Instagram worthy or, picture perfect looking layers. There are a lot of layers. There's layers of fear and doubt and worry and sadness and, wonder and awe and confusion. And there's every color of the rainbow inside of us. And I think I have the research of this in the book, but in the 50s, Kodak came out with the first camera for people to buy and be able to use by themselves without having to go to a professional. And all of their marketing was based around saying that photography was about making things look happy. Capture a happy moment with a Kodak, have your celebration documented with a Kodak camera. And so that marketing has only been amplified by our media focused culture on the way things look, about making them look really perfect and good. And I think that has infiltrated the way that we think of what is the purpose of a photograph. And so I really am hoping to shift the way that people think about the purpose of pictures. And I think often especially because we're using our phone to take a lot of pictures, our brains have been shifted to think, is this going to be pleasing to someone else? What is this person going to think about this picture? And it's all about the way it looks. And there's very, very little focus about how we feel when we take the picture, or trying to create pictures that feel a certain way. So, some ways to do that are intentionally out of focus pictures. We just moved here. We had a time of transition, and nothing about that transition felt clear. And so we made an effort as a family. We would have like a family project where I wanted them to use colors out of focus on their camera. It had to be blurry, which is something we're not used to normally doing. And I said, how can you show me how you feel about this in-between time with a picture? And so it's more like, that was more of like an idea of like, how can I paint in a photo? How can I paint my feelings with color in a photo rather than take a picture that shows this in some perfect way? It's a whole different perspective.
I love that. I think that's so interesting. You're right. Like, we think about pictures as like a way to celebrate something or remember something that was good, but there's also moments where we need to just process feelings or work out some emotions. What have you learned about your children through teaching them photography?
I think that it gives me a window into the way they feel that they are not able to express in words. I mean, I think that's the purpose for all art, really, whether we're conscious of it or not when we're doing it, is we are getting the feelings out. And sometimes we don't know how to form the words. Sometimes we're really afraid and we don't know how to say, I'm scared, but we can put it into a picture, or we can focus on something that maybe frames that in a different way, or a metaphor. The world is full of metaphors. And that is, when we look at something like the earth, like that experience of going into the water, that's something that is scary and it doesn't feel good, but it's a connective experience. And so I think photographs can be the same way, but the person we're looking to connect with first through our photographs is ourself. The self that maybe we're hiding, or if we've pushed our feelings down because it would make other people uncomfortable, we can communicate that through imagery.
Yes, I think that's so good. And even like with the toddlers, I'm sure, I think that's so fun. Like, whenever my kids were little and they would steal my phone and then take a million pictures of like their toes and like a sock and something in their room, it was just like, even though it was funny and there was a lot of things to delete, it was still so fun. And I kept some of those just because it was so fun to see their little perspective of what they saw as a 2 or 3 year old.
I love that. Yeah. I think with the little ones too, they are still figuring out words, and they're only saying words that they've heard us say. So, I think so many of the layers of who they are still developing. And, along with what you're saying, some of the pictures that have helped me to be more kind with myself, which is like some self-compassion is a huge part that I talk about in the book, of taking pictures of ourselves to learn to be more kind and compassionate with ourselves. I have found that I look very different from their perspective than I do when I look in the mirror, and it's always from below. And so seeing the way they see me though has helped me to realize, trying to get some perfect picture, I'm not even going to look in that picture the way that they see me. And so who is this picture for? Is this for other people to think that I look good? Or is this for them? Because I really want the focus when I'm taking the pictures. This is for us. This is for them.
Yes, so true. So for the parents that are listening and they are like, okay, I feel like our family needs a family project, like what you're talking about, or maybe just giving our kids some different ways to express their emotions through art. How would they get started in that? What would you suggest?
Yeah, well, I think every person has these unique little things about them. So I think the more you can make it about capturing the uniqueness of each person is really amazing. I mean, obviously, like going on adventures and using your camera to capture things that you're interested in, that's a great way to learn what you love and to help other people get to know you. But I would go deeper than that. And one example is I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I have to give myself a lot of injections, and I have a lot of scars on my legs, and I usually cover them up because I don't want anyone to see them. I don't want to talk about it. That's kind of my normal inclination. I don't want to be a burden to anyone with that. But my children, they trace those scars with their fingers, and one day my son said it looked like constellations, like the stars, and he took a pen and we did little constellations and we took pictures of that. And it helped to reframe this thing that I normally hide into something that is interesting and beautiful. And I've seen them do it now. My toddler last week, when he got a bruise, he was sad and he kissed it and we've talked about it. And then I saw him that he drew a little smiley face on it and he made it into a face. And he said, "Mama, can you take a picture of my bruise?" And I realized, he's learning how to reframe the painful experiences in life and make them into art. And so these are things that we can do with our kids when they're he's 2, super little, that help them to see these things that happen to them or that are in the world, that they can see it differently and preserve it through a photo.
It's just like when we look at the clouds and we're trying to figure out what the shapes are. We've done that with bruises too. Like, what shape does that look like? It looks kind of like a horse or something, and just like you said, reframing it so that it doesn't feel like something negative. It just feels like something that's a part of you now.
That's a wonderful practice. I'm going to have to start doing that one too. Thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. Well, Joy, this has been so good. I've loved getting to know you and learning about photography from you. And I love that you do this with your family. I think that's so important. How can our listeners find out about your book and more about you?
Thank you. So Instagram is a great place. It's at Joy Prouty, and the book is called Practicing Presence, and it's available everywhere. And there's a lot of information in there that I hope will be wonderful starting points for parents and kids.
Yes. And it's a beautiful book. It's full of photography and it's lovely. So I hope lots of people check out your book and definitely go purchase it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
Yes. Okay. So my favorite thing to do when I was a little kid, I had a paper route, and I would wake up, the papers would be delivered to my front step at, a couple hours before the sun came up. And it was this quiet, special time where it would be totally quiet in the house, which was not the norm. And I would open the door and hear the crickets and pull them in, and I would have to wrap them all up and put them in papers and put them in my bike. And I felt it was that sense of adventure and having this, this is for me. And I would ride my bike and put my arms out, and I felt so free, like I was flying, and I was doing something that I just loved that no one had to help me with. So that was my special memory.
That's really cool. How old were you when you did that?
I think I was 10.
10. Okay. That's awesome. That's so fun. Yeah. And just being awake when no one else is awake is kind of special, even as an adult.
Yes. Yeah. Even now, riding your bike before the sun comes up, just that little bit of light, it's just magic.
Yes, I agree. Well, Joy, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
Wasn't that so good? I loved meeting Joy and learning about all the things she is doing to connect with nature and the beauty of God's creation where she lives. How incredible to see whales where you live. Isn't that amazing? I love when she was talking about photography and how she said photography can help you focus on something outside of your body and see how people connect. So observing details closely can actually help you de-stress and balance emotions. That's such a good idea when you're trying to figure out how to calm down from a situation, to pick up your camera or a magnifying glass or something that helps you zoom in on something and observe the details. She also talked about shifting the idea to think about pictures as something that honors and preserves something for yourself and how you feel. It doesn't always have to be picture perfect. Sometimes it might be a little blurry, but it helps you remember and honor that thing in that moment and how you felt in that moment. And I love when she talked about reframing, to see what is happening or what is going on in the world and how can we change our perspective and see it differently. And photography is a great way to think about that. If you'd like to learn more about Joy and her beautiful book, Practicing Presence, just head over to her website, joyprouty.com. You can also follow her on social media on Instagram at joyprouty. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you can be on the podcast. So here is a poem written by my friend Brinley.
Simple Happiness by Brinley Halstrom. Simple happiness everywhere you go. Simple happiness, how I love it so. Simple happiness, everywhere it grows. Simple happiness, take time slow. Simple happiness, you're still here. Look around, it's crystal clear. Simple happiness, stay near.
That was so good, Brinley. I am so impressed that you wrote that and that you said it so well. Good job. Well, if you would like to be like Brinley and share a poem that you have written, or maybe your favorite joke or an encouraging quote or a Bible verse, just head over to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only, or you can find information about how to send it to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a few ways you can do that. First, be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using, and leave a rating and review. When you do that, it really does help people find out about shows like this, and it is so encouraging to read what you think about the show. You can also share this episode with friends and family and tell them why you like to listen, or you can go by my website and click the link at the top that says support. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you so much for being here today. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between, and all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.